Let me see if that makes the internet a little bit better. Let me know
Okay.
if you have any issues with hearing me.
I can hear you. You disappeared for a second. And I was like, is it my internet? Because my internet has been really terrible all week. But anyway, I think I started recording. Yes, I'm recording. The episode I think I did with Susie just went live today because Susie also volunteered to join me. So I mean, we're just like, this is, you've listened to podcasts before, it's just super casual, and I'm just going to ask about like your role and then your journey a little bit, and I'll probably make you tell us about The Walking Dead and all the other cool
Of
things that
course.
you've done.
Sure.
It just gives a little a little bit more depth. So anyway, I will do you have a, let me see, hang on, sorry, let me go back to the calendar here. Oh yeah, you do. Okay, so I'll read I didn't know you lived in Bulgaria. I will read your bio. I record that separately, so you don't have to listen to me read it. And then we will just dive right in. So do you have any questions before we start?
No, I hope that I give you like content that people actually would want to listen to. I'm not exactly sure, I wasn't sure what you're looking for with this. Is like, this would be like all about me, or just like a collection of like interviews with different team members. But yeah.
No, it's all about you. No, I honestly think people just like enjoy hearing conversations with interesting people. So yeah, so no, I think you are all good. We definitely won't go an entire hour. I think this is 45 minutes that we've got scheduled, but I don't think we'll probably go that long. So
Okay.
All right, ready?
Yeah, give it my best shot.
Yeah, you are fine. No worries. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to 100 Degrees of Entrepreneurship. And I am really excited. I have a very special guest with me today. This is our second team member that we have brought on. And so I have Sarah Negris-Mamani with me. Sarah, welcome.
Thanks, Stephanie. Thanks for having me.
So Sarah is a bookkeeper on the nonprofit side of our business, and she's been with 100 Degrees for over a year now. And Sarah, I would love if you could just like tell our listeners a little bit about what you do. Like, what does it mean to be a nonprofit bookkeeper and work with our clients?
Yeah, so I help our clients with their day-to-day financial transactions, just making sure everything goes to the right place, keeping everything organized, and the chart of accounts, which is basically just means that when income comes in, since I work with nonprofits, making sure that if it's donations, it's going to the right donation bucket, or if they're earning income some other way, that it gets put in that category. Sometimes nonprofits get grants, and we need to make sure everything is being tracked in the right place. So when they do their grant reports later in the month or later in the year, that they can show where everything is going. I'll record where their expenses are going to. So one of the big things with nonprofits is their 990, and they have to show which expenses are admin or fundraising or program related. So it makes it a lot easier if you just keep everything organized throughout the year, month to month, and putting them in the right places. And then there's just always questions that come up related to payroll or paying vendors or just other government type documents they might get in the mail, and helping them answer those questions.
Yeah, so Sarah and the other bookkeepers on our team are the ones that are like behind the scenes, experts in QuickBooks, and really making sure all of the details of our clients' books are in the right place. So Sarah is super detail oriented and takes a lot of care in making sure the back end of our clients' businesses are nice and clean and tidy. Sarah, what has been your career journey up to this point, though? You haven't always been done nonprofit finance for your entire career. So what has your journey looked like that landed you here?
Yeah, to say it hasn't been linear is definitely an understatement. I So I don't even know if you know this, Stephanie, but I started my college at a military school. I went to the University of North Georgia, which is it's like a tier 2 military academy. So it's like, West Point, but it's like
Yeah,
a tier below that.
I did
So I
not
was there
know
for my,
that.
yeah, I was all about ROTC when I was in high school. But once I got in there and everyone said, get out, and I was like, oh gosh. So I decided that the Army would always be there if I did want to go. I'm sure they would always be happy to take me. So I decided just to transfer to a civilian college my sophomore year. And basically that means that it was a regular college, but it was like on an ROTC scholarship. So I would be obligated to join the military at the end of it. So I just decided to go to a regular school. Like I said, if I wanted to do the military, I would. I knew that I wanted to work and live abroad. I knew that I wanted to learn a different language. That was kind of the goal there. And so the next step I did was during that summer between transferring, I went to Bulgaria because I knew I wanted to study abroad, and I saw a flyer and it was affordable. It was much cheaper than going to like London or Paris or someplace else. So I said, okay, I can do that. So I went to the American University of Bulgaria for that summer. I didn't learn that much Bulgarian, but I knew enough to, order food at restaurants and get by. So that was good enough. And that was, just amazing. Just, the first time out of the country when you're, 18 years old is just, it's really great. So I decided then to study sport management as my major at the University of West Georgia. So in sport management, it was kind of like business focused. And this was like right after the recession hit in 2008. So everyone was freaking out about jobs. I didn't want to do something that was just majoring in business or economics, because everyone who was graduating with those degrees just couldn't seem to find a job. So I wanted something that was just different. And at that school, that particular program had a pretty good track record of getting people jobs because it was such a smaller group of people. So I just signed up for every internship I could get my hands on, every volunteer opportunity. So during school, I would work at the Atlanta Falcons for home games. And so I had some like formal internships and some more like informal internships at the Atlanta Falcons and the Atlanta Motor Speedway, and then Georgia Soccer Association. And that's how I found myself with my first real job doing sales at DC United. So that's what brought me to Washington, DC. And I did sales, and anyone who's done sales, especially as an entry-level position, it's super hard, but I do think that it really gave me a lot of good skills with getting over my fear of cold calling and just reaching out to people and just asking and just dealing with so many different types of people and industries and trying to sell people soccer tickets when they really didn't want them, because my whole job was getting groups of people together who normally don't go to soccer games, like Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts or churches or alumni groups or things like that. So that was an interesting year. But that event management, all of that experience brought me into another job that was much more like, it was a nonprofit. So it was program management, event management, conference planning, just all the logistics, just all the things, which I kind of have had a piece of in all my roles, but it was the first time I had just a concise, job that just focused on that. And that brought me to working in nonprofits and events. And I knew that this was the field I wanted to work in, because I knew that I always wanted to have a role that I was working in a lot of different areas. Something where people always say in nonprofits wear a lot of different hats. So I definitely had, those types of roles. And I saw that people who were working in finance and most nonprofits were just a part of like every meeting. They had their hand in like every pot, like literally just everyone always had to work with the finance person. And I think, finance always intimidated me. I was scared of numbers and scared of money, just like, oh. And I realized that the stuff that I did with events was actually like, it was a lot of numbers. It was a lot of, keeping track of things. It just had to do with tickets and chairs and dinner plates and then I learned like, okay, it's money, but it's not that different. It's just keeping track of things. It just happens to be a dollar and cents value versus, like I said, like a dinner plate at a hotel. So yeah, I decided to teach myself QuickBooks, and just wanted to get over this barrier, this fear, this intimidation of money, because I feel like that would just unlock so many doors for me in my career. And I think that's exactly what it did. It just, so many people I think just shy away from numbers and money, and it's just what it just is it's another piece to the puzzle, but it's not like an entirely separate part. It's just another side of the coin when it comes to the programs and all that other stuff that we're used to with nonprofits.
Yeah, that's such an interesting point that you were like, well, I deal with numbers already. Like you said, it's tables or attendees or whatever it might be. And then dealing with money and finances, you just add a dollar sign. And so I just think about listeners, if you're listening to this podcast, you probably are at least somewhat interested in money because you know that's our jam here. But like if you do feel intimidated by numbers or by finances, think about the numbers that you currently manage in your life. There's got to be something somewhere where you're managing numbers. So if you're like a course creator, you're looking at conversions of your funnels and things like that. If you are, if you're serving clients, you're probably looking at how many clients you're serving. Like there are millions of ways that you're already using numbers. So like, you're already doing it. And just like Sarah said, you just add a dollar sign in front and now you're managing finances as well. I think that's like a huge, that's like a light bulb for me. I mean, I love managing numbers, but I just love the way that you sort of explained that because it's so true and can help people really get over that fear. So you like started to teach yourself QuickBooks or like did like QuickBooks training and stuff. And so what was your thought behind that? It was like, okay, I want to get over my fear. Was your idea like, all right, I'm going to teach myself QuickBooks and kind of learn this kind of thing because I want to then get a job in finance? Or was it like, I just want to kind of expand my overall like professional capabilities?
Yeah. So this was in March 2020. So the world was turning upside down, and I had just gotten done with maternity leave. So my career was very open-ended. So I wasn't necessarily saying like, oh, this is what I want to do. I thought it would probably what I wanted to do was to not have anything that would limit me when I'm looking for roles or looking for whatever, career path I wanted. I just didn't want anything to hold me back. I wanted to have every available option. And I did know that in my, now that I have, when you're 20 years old and someone says, do you want to work in events and stay up till midnight and then open the doors at 4 a.m. and do everything, you're like, yeah, that sounds
Sure.
fun. And then after a few years of that and having a child and having a family, you do kind of want a more 9 to 5 role. At least that's what it was for me. And I started to realize that maybe some of the business side of managing things is actually, just a better fit for me right now. And I'll let someone else, handle those putting out those fires at 3 a.m. because I've done enough of that, I think, for a while. And yeah, I wanted to be open to freelancing and just anything that might come up if there happened to be a touch of finance. I wasn't necessarily prepared to dive in, but when the opportunity presented itself, I didn't even know a role like this necessarily existed. Working with 100 Degrees and being able to work with, multiple nonprofit clients. So I was just over the moon when I found out that I'd be joining the team in this capacity.
Yeah. And I feel like the way that you joined the team was like slightly unique because I think we had posted for the role and you had reached out and sent me a really just like well-written, very professional email that was like, hey, I'm looking to build my skill set in this area. Could I like take on some projects for you or something along those lines, right?
Exactly.
And I was like, can I just hire you for like the whole job instead? Like, can you just come work here? I don't know what it was about like your resume and the email that you wrote to me, but I was like, there, I see something in this woman, and she is definitely a self-starter and a go-getter. And like, let's just do this. Let's just make it official. So I don't think we did any projects in the beginning. It was like, I think you're just hired. Was
Yeah,
that
that was
go ahead.
that was so surprising. Yeah, I never expected that, but that's exactly what it was. I just was reaching out and saying, like, can I, work? I think it was around, April 15th. So it's like maybe they need some help with taxes or something. I'll just like get my, dip my toe in the water and with them, or maybe another business or two. But you're like, no, we just want to hire you. So
Yeah.
that was such a pleasant surprise.
Was it kind of like, I imagine that you were also kind of like exploring other opportunities at the time. And was it like scary or nerve-wracking at all to go all in
Oh,
on the
for
type of
sure.
job that you hadn't done
Yeah.
before?
I had another offer just kind of right at that time. That was something that was a finance and operations role, and it was much more traditional. And they were remote because of the pandemic, but their goal was to come back to the office. And I really had to think about like, do I want to just take this big leap and do nothing but finance, and I could totally just fail? I could hate it. I could just be awful at it. Or do I want to stay with something that's 50-50, so I could like stay in my comfort zone and then do a little bit of finance. But being remote and just with my personal like family situation, like that was just something that was so unique, and I couldn't pass up the opportunity. And I did want to, I've always been the person that like when there is like a big leap of faith, I tend to just jump and just hope for the best. And never seems as bad as you are afraid it could be. So I had to just go on my past experiences and my past leaps of faith and hope for the best, really. I'm
Yeah.
glad I did.
Well, me too. And me too for sure. Yeah, I think that's interesting that, it sounds like in your journey you have made like there have been lots of different leaps of faith because you have made some like hard right turns and like significant pivots from what you're doing in the past. But I love that you sort of looked at that history of like, okay, I've not only survived, but like thrived in each of these situations. And so like, joining us was like taking just the next right step in your journey. And I
Mhm.
am like, yeah, I'm so glad about that. And yeah, definitely remember like talking to you during that time and you mentioning the, having another offer and really being, sort of intrigued by being able to work remote 100% of the time. And I tell people all the time, like, I will never, ever work in an office ever again. Like, I love working remotely. So, and you are like, you're really taking advantage of the working remotely in like the best way possible. So what has that experience been like for you? Because especially in like events management, there's no working remotely, like you're on site,
Yeah,
you're in person. So what has that shift been like, professionally and for, your personal life, your family, and working
sure.
entirely remote?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've just come such a long way in terms of um, the negative aspect. I've just had a lot of negative things that have happened as far as like I hate to say work life balance, but when I started and I was working with the soccer team, and it was sales, and it was like, okay, like you don't have to, but we really need you to go out after work and go to restaurants and bars and meet with clients. Oh, and on the weekends, if they want to tour the stadium, you should do that. And it was just like this, it's sales. So I mean, you didn't have to, but there was a lot of pressure to literally be 24/7 working and and give your cell phone out to everyone you meet and always be in contact with them. And that can create a lot of problems when you're, having to step out of family and friend, get-togethers to take work calls and missing out on things, and just never being home for that. And then, in the other roles that I had where it was event management and conference management, just being um, in high intensity situations, so for long hours with your coworkers, like that can just lead to a lot of negativity and just things that it's part of the job, but it doesn't always have to be like when you're in it, you just feel like that's just the way it is. And then being in this role, I mean, I close my laptop and I'm done. Like there might be an email or two that I get from a client, but that is like, oh, like I wish they didn't say that, or just, but those things that might happen, but it's nothing in comparison to some of the, prior roles I've had where it's, people in your face, like just everyone's stress is just so palpable all the time. And it's hard to get away from that. And it can be kind of, um, yeah, just that comparison, like where you feel like you need to do more, you need to stay later because you literally see your coworker staying later and like everyone's wearing their busyness like a badge of honor. I mean, what I love about 100 Degrees is how everyone is so vocal about like, hey, like take a break, work-life balance, no one is trying to compete with each other to do the most things or to be the busiest person on the team. And even if they were, just because of the fact that we're remote, I just think that there's so much of a better boundary and separation between like your work time and your personal time.
Yeah. Yeah. That's something that's super important to me. I mean, that was one of the catalysts for even creating the business in the first place was when I was pregnant with my first daughter. I was like, at that point in time, I was driving, an hour each way in rush hour traffic to a job that I really didn't like. It wasn't high pressure or high stress. It was just like boring. And I was like, I can't imagine being away from my home for 10 hours a day, the hour each way plus 8 hours in this like horrible office away from like my newborn that I have, wished and dreamed and tried for like 3 years now. Like, I just can't imagine that life. And so that was the whole reason that I started the business in the first place, along with, of course, like seeing a need and wanting to help people. Like that's the other piece. But yeah, I think that's so interesting. And what I always like to remind myself, because I get stressed out too, because our clients really do mean a lot to me and I really want to help them. And I want to like deliver so much value and like be of service. And so I sometimes forget though, that like, we're not saving lives. Like there's no financial report or like thing in QuickBooks or whatever that is going to save somebody's life. So there's like really nothing that we do is an emergency. And I just feel like everybody on our team is so efficient and productive with the time that they are working. And just like everybody works really smart and like we know how to get the job done in the hours that we have. So you don't have to work overtime and that's not expected of you. And so yeah, I think that's great. Do you find any downsides of working remotely? Like, do you ever feel lonely? Like you wish you had that like water cooler chatting with coworkers, or do you feel like Slack is enough and you're good?
I mean, if there are ever any moments that I wish that it's pretty small. I mean, in my particular situation, my husband also works from home, so we're around each other all the time. And my daughter comes home from daycare. So I don't feel like I ever have that much time to be bored, like genuinely. And I have Slack open all day. So I do send those like little messages with a coworker or two. And yeah, I mean, if I really need to get out of the house, if I absolutely have to, I'll take my laptop to the library or to a cafe or something like that. And then that feeling of needing to like be out and socializing, it's over and I'm ready just to put my head down and get the work done and, be done with my work day. Cause like you mentioned with like commuting and stuff, like just to have to commit to that, Monday through Friday it takes so much time. And then I feel like that's the time that I need for working out or just anything else. If I had to do commuting too, that would immediately erase that time that I have for that.
Yeah, totally. I know, I feel like even just working at Starbucks for 2 hours, I feel like rejuvenated. I'm like, okay, I want to be at my house again. Like I'm sick of hearing all these people walking by me and talking and whatever. So I'm like ready to be home. And I know you have like lots of different interests and hobbies and stuff outside of work. I know one of them is running. Have you been running a lot lately or not so much?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
not lately, but I literally just started. I just got a personal trainer and I just started my exercise routine. Like I'm trying to get back into it. I know there's like some races in a couple of months. I might, try to. I'm not going to register yet because I don't want to add that pressure because I've done that before. Then it's like,
Yes.
it puts the stress back into it. So I'm going to hold off. But yeah, the past 3 months, I'd say it's been a hiatus. And I used to be, speaking of stress with running, I used to always just be so worried about my fitness and just being always afraid I'm going to lose it. And I think with time and maturity, I have learned to give myself breaks and understand that there's a season for everything. I mean, literally and figuratively. In this past 3 months, I have involved selling my house and moving and traveling. And I just had to give myself the grace and not beat myself up over the fact that now's not the time that I'm going to have a really good exercise routine. It's just not. And I had to have the faith that I will get back there. And I could run I did like a half marathon 6 months ago. And now I'm down to I can run for half an hour before getting too tired. But that's
Right.
where I'm at now. And I had to just not carry that with me all this time, being like, oh my gosh, I'm losing all my fitness because I just had to prioritize the other stuff. And now that part is over, I'm going to get back into my 3 days a week, exercise routine, basically. I mean, that's the goal anyway.
I love that. And I just love that attitude that you've taken, because I have gone through the same exact thing. Especially, I feel like, especially since my first daughter was born, because I feel like when you have a kid and then, forevermore, just kids there's just another extra thing to deal with. And so I've definitely gone through seasons where it's like, you know what, the only things I can really focus on right now are my kid and my job. And everything else is kind of taking a back seat. And then, Kyla got older. And so it's like, okay, let me add in exercise. Let me add in friends, the more time with friends again, and hobbies and things. And then you have a second kid, and then it's like, okay, work and kid again. That's pretty much all I can focus on. And I'm kind of in the same area as you right now, where I'm on an exercise hiatus. I need to get back into it, and I have beat myself up about it a little bit, oh, why don't you just go downstairs and get on the treadmill? But I think making peace with that makes the transition back into it a lot easier. It's like one day you're just gonna feel like it again and go do it, and it's gonna feel natural, and then you'll be in your rhythm. So I love that, because I've been out of it too. And I think that was just a little encouragement and motivation for me too, because I feel like, I don't know, I went out of town a few months ago and got out of my routine, and then just never got back into it. So
oh yeah, it could be kids, it could be illnesses. I mean, I got COVID twice. I'd never had it the entire 2020 to 2021. And then this year in 2022, I've had it twice, and my husband's had it twice, and it's been staggered. So we've been all of a sudden being a single parent, with the other parent isolated and stuff. And so then that throws off an entire month, right then and there, just dealing with things like that. And then if you have a parent getting ill, or there's just, you're living in an area where there's all of a sudden there's wildfires, or there's a flood, or just all kinds of stuff. I mean, I think we all just have to give ourselves more grace when it comes to that, and avoid trying to overdo it, trying to get back into it too quickly, because that's the fastest way to get hurt and then just throw everything off, again. So you have to have an abundance of patience with yourself, which is, hard, because we want to get, we're motivated and we want to get, back to our fitness right away, but I just have to be humble and okay, a mile is all I can do right now. And that's just the way it's going to be.
Yeah, it's playing. I mean, I talk about playing the long game all the time, related to business a lot, because it's there are no overnight successes. You're not going to be a sustainable multi-million-dollar business, whatever, or nonprofit, with a quick win and overnight success. There is no such thing. It is a long game. I feel like the only way that 100 Degrees could have ever gotten to where it is today is because of the past 6 years of work and mistakes and lessons learned, and everything that has led up to that. And I feel like, fitness is another thing. You're not going to go from, okay, we haven't exercised in 6 months now, talking to myself, to okay, I'm ready to run a half marathon next week. I'm not there. You're playing a long game. And I just always have to remind myself that in so many areas of my life, because I'm very impatient and I definitely want instant gratification all the time. So yeah, that's a good reminder.
Yeah.
The other thing that I was going to, oh, another thing I wanted to note was, I just wanted to go back really quickly because I made a note of this, was I think it was really interesting. I'm going literally back to your college journey and your transition into sports management. Did you have the like sort of strategic insight at like 19 or 20 years old that like, oh, I really want to be like specialized in my major so that I can get a job? Or like, did you have mentors or advisors that were helping you, or were you just like intuitively, you just like knew like, all right, I want to be specialized because that's going to help me get a job?
I would say that was intuition. I mean, no, I did not have a mentor. No one told me that. I just could literally just see everyone on the news, all of my peers, everyone saying, I just got a degree and I've been without a job for 6 months, a year, et cetera. And I just felt like the only thing I could do was just be a smaller, like part of a smaller group. So I'm just not one of this like large group, because at that end of the day, I wouldn't have anything extraordinary to like put on my resume to distinguish me from the other people. So hence me studying abroad and learning languages and just doing the niche things. And I didn't know exactly like, I mean, a part of me like definitely dreamed about being like, a sports executive and all this stuff, but I didn't necessarily know if I would get there. But I knew that at least the only way to possibly get there, I always had a better chance of doing it if I put myself in that position versus just being something that's very, generalized. And I knew
I
that
think that's,
anyone could
go ahead.
study abroad.
Go
Like
ahead.
I didn't have to have a special skill to do any of that stuff. I just tried to put myself in those positions just to be unique. And that always seemed to come back. People are like, oh, you study abroad. Oh, okay, that's cool. Like, and it just seemed to always open up doors. And that's probably one of the best decisions I made, was to just live and travel abroad, basically.
I love that. That was, I feel like one of the best things that I did as well was working abroad, in my last semester of college. But I just think that that lesson is so interesting about really niching down. And you hear about it, like anybody listening has probably heard about this in the business world, like really niching down and working with a very small, like, sort of subset of a group, and really being that go-to person for that specialty. And I think that it's interesting that you sort of, even if you didn't like do this knowingly, you took that sort of advice and that strategy in your college career, and it obviously paid off. Or were you like a big sports fan? Like, were you
No.
a big sports
and
person?
and everyone asked me, like when I worked at the Falcons, and they're like, did you play football? And I'm like, I'm a girl, so no. Like I didn't play football in high school. But even when I was working in soccer, like, everyone always asked, and no, I have no strong passion for it. And I think it's probably better that you don't, because when you pull back the curtain, it's, it's not as pretty, and it loses its, nothing is as special. Like after being able to watch NFL games from the field, and now I go and like I just sit in like a great seat, but I'm sitting in the seat. So I'm like, yeah, that's all right. I
Yeah.
used to watch games behind the cheerleaders, and like having to duck from like footballs, and like watching out from the camera, like trying to roll over me. And now I'm like, I'm just sitting in the seat. That's all right.
That's so
But yeah,
funny.
the same thing with like movies and TV shows. Like after being an extra, like I can't watch any movie or TV show without feeling like I can see like, I'm just always thinking about the production, and I feel like I can see like how, fake it can be sometimes.
Yeah, you're like, I know what happens behind the scenes, so it kind of like ruins things. Um,
Mhm.
like, yeah, I was say, if you know what goes into a hot dog, you're probably not eating hot dogs anymore. Okay, so before we wrap up, you need to tell us, please, if you would, about your experience being an extra. Tell us all about it, because when you first told our team, we were all like, what? Are you kidding me? How did this happen? This is amazing. And then you sent us pictures to prove it, and it was awesome. So if you wouldn't mind just telling us,
Yeah.
telling us the extra experience.
No, it's funny. I was thinking about it, and like, how did I get into all these things? And how did I get to 100 degrees? Well, I just like sent you an email and I asked, how did I get a job at the Falcons? I literally just sent another like kind of like funny. I met an executive, and then I kind of sent him like a funny email, actually referencing a Will Ferrell movie because he mentioned something about Will Ferrell. So I was like, oh, like, and I sent him a funny joke about Will Ferrell. And by the way, I'm available if you have like any extra spots for an internship. And same thing with being an extra. I just, my mom worked for the Atlanta government, and The Walking Dead was this brand new show and they were just filming. And I was like, hey, like, this was like in between semesters, and I didn't have like a full-time job, and I couldn't get a full-time job. I just wanted something that was just for like a month, basically. So I said, hey, Mom, can you reach out to that contact at that show you're talking about, The Walking Dead or something, and just see if they like have like, I'm sure there's a lot of jobs and things going on. They must need like some help or something, right? And they just said, oh yeah, we're doing a roll call for extras, and just show up at 5 a.m. at this place and on this day. And yeah, that's what got it started. So for anyone who doesn't know, Georgia is becoming like the new Hollywood. There's so many movies and TV shows being filmed there now. From the past like 10 years, they've just been building studios and just moving a lot of production down there because it's a bit cheaper than California. And people have always asked me, like, what's the deal with being an extra? How do you do it? And I mean, I did get to be an extra in that one just because of that first contact. But then when I started talking to them, they're like, oh yeah, you can just follow like this casting company on Facebook or this casting company on Facebook. And they just post messages, just, hey, tomorrow at, 5 a.m., we need 100 people, or we need 5 people, or all these things. It's not that hard. You just have to, be available at the drop of a hat, because the way that the production companies works is they have like all these rules and regulations behind, the unions, like the actors, they can only work for 12 hours, and they have to have like, another 12-hour break between it. So they have everything scheduled until the last second, because they never know exactly when they're going to shoot a certain scene. It's not like something that they can plan ahead like 6 months in advance. It's like something they might plan ahead like the day before or the week before. So as long as you're, able to drive somewhere, be there the next morning, then that's pretty much all you need to do to be an extra to some degree. And so yeah, The Walking Dead, they filmed it in some pretty remote locations. I don't know if you've ever seen the show. I mean, it's supposed to look like the apocalypse. So we're just kind of going to some random, small towns and old Kmart's and stuff like that. And you would just show up, and I was never what they call a hero, which is like when you're like in front of the camera with like, missing appendages and like all the stuff. I was just like in the mid ground. So I just had like, they put like conditioner on my hair to make it like look super matted, and they like spray painted my face with like blood and guts. And I just had like, some like ratted dress or whatever. And I would just walk around like in the weeds with like thorns and all that kind of stuff, just kind of shuffling my feet for a couple hours. And then we would just go back to the trailer and eat lunch and just be on our phone and wait for a couple more hours and see if they needed us again. And I did that for, off and on for various episodes. But I also did Vampire Diaries, Catching Fire, a couple of other like Hallmark movies. I can't even remember. It would be that random. And there was another movie called Project Almanac, I think, that I actually did a lot in, but you can't really see me in any of the scenes. So I was so proud of that one. I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm totally going to be like in this movie. And I wasn't like in any scene, but that one was so hard because it was like all about partying and dancing. So like, I'm like jumping up and down, but I'm basically doing calf raises for hours. Hours. I mean, and it's fast. Like, it's like, okay, do it for like a minute and then stop. And then like another minute and then stop. But yeah, it's, it was interesting. Oh, and then like there was like a pool party scene. So we would get wet, and then we'd have to go and just do it again and again and again, and jump in the pool and jump in the pool and jump in the pool. So it's fun. Again, when you're 20 years old, like it's all great.
Yeah. 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 I can't imagine doing that now. I do it once and be like, okay, I'm going home. I'm done.
Yeah.
You got what you
just
need of me. I'm out of here.
Exposed to the elements. I mean, depending on what you're doing, but it can be really great. I mean, they like, some people are like, oh, do they pay you? Like, yeah, they definitely pay you. You get food, you get, tons of breaks. And, it is interesting. I did see, like, pretty up close and personal, a lot of famous people. I saw like John Hamm and Woody Harrelson. Um, and I don't know, a few other, I mean, those are the big ones that I remember. And
So
but yeah, like I
fun.
said, like, once you see them, then it's like, it definitely is not this like big, like, sparkly, like, oh my God, celebrity. It's just like, we just see them and they're just like sitting there eating a sandwich. It's like they're not
Right. The
nothing that
magic, the
special.
magic is gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, I love that the lesson here, I'm like, is you just asked.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
love that. I love that. And I have another, I have like this friends that I know who does the same thing. Like if there's something she wants, she just asks, and in like a nice, polite, professional way. And like a lot of the time she gets what she wants because she asks and other people don't ask. And so
Mhm.
I just think that's just such a good reminder to anybody in anything, like whether it's business or otherwise. If there's something you want, if there's somebody that you want to work with, if there's a stage you want to speak on, if there's if there's someone that you want to collaborate with, just ask. I mean, the worst that can happen is they say no, but like a lot of times they're going to say yes because nobody else is taking that leap and actually asking. So
Mhm.
I love that you're
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
yeah, hey, is there something I can do? Okay, cool. Like that's what I want to do. So
Mhm.
I love that story of yours. I think that's so fun. Awesome. Well, Sarah, thank you so much for joining me today. This was such a joy to kind of dig in a little bit deeper and let our audience get to hear from you. Because I feel like we have such amazing people on the team with amazing backgrounds and stories. And I think it's important that, that everybody gets to know you all as well. So thank you so much for spending your time with me this afternoon.
Thanks so much. It's been a blast.